My name is Allison Loggins-Hull, and thank you for joining me on my impact video for Composers Now. I'm super excited to share my work with you and tell you a little bit about myself. Today I am shooting from a park near my home in Montclair, New Jersey. This is called Brook Park, and I needed to get out of the house because it's a beautiful day, and who wants to do another video inside of a room? We've been doing that all year, so thought I'd switch it up and step outside, and it's really gorgeous. This is one of my favorite places. I come here pretty much every morning when I start my day. I do a little run, and it's a really nice way to find peace and serenity and appreciation for things. So today I'm gonna share some of my more recent works with you. Just a little background info about myself. Aside from being a composer, I am a flutist, very much a performer, and I'm probably most known for my work in my duo Flutronics, which I formed with one of my best friends, my sister from another mister, Natalie Droshen, and we formed Flutronics back in 2000, I want to say 7, about 14 years ago, which is really remarkable to think about. And at that time, that's when I really started to dive into composition and experimentation and improvisation, and just really exploring my own creativity. So for years, when Natalie and I were trying to get Flutronics started and get ourselves out there, most of my compositions were for that ensemble. Being 2 flutes and using electronics and voice, and we also have a drummer that we play with, Joe Blacks. There wasn't a lot of repertoire for our group for that instrumentation, so it was really up to us to make that happen. So the majority of my early years composing was really just for that group and for collaborations that we did. And probably maybe 4 or 5 years into doing that is when I really started to branch out. And I got my very first commission in 2016 from a dear friend of mine, Amanda Gukin, who is a cellist, and it was for her Forward Music project, which is a project that aims to showcase the works of women and female identifying composers, and their works reflecting on women's issues or women's experience. So for that commission, I chose to write about the issue of child marriage and child brides. And that was the first time I really incorporated a lot of research into a composition, a lot of listening to people's narratives and experiences, and really just trying to dive deep into this experience, which was pretty intense, to say the least. I learned a lot of disturbing facts and figures, but I came away from that experience really inspired to continue working in that way, to continue to try to explore untold stories or not so heard stories, to kind of shed some musical light on a history or an experience that should be more well known, and that people, I believe, should be more aware about. So it was a big turning point for me in my process, because up until then I had been so focused on writing for my ensemble Flutronics, and I hadn't yet really allowed myself to explore in that way. So once I did that, I really, my whole kind of process had like a turning point, I would say. So I'd like to share with you my piece Stolen for solo cello, performed by Amanda Gukin. I hope you enjoy. My next commission was from the Texas Flute Society, and it was for the Myrna Brown competition, which they host, which is one of the bigger national flute young artist competitions here in the United States. And I was asked to write a piece for solo flute that incorporated some extended techniques and contemporary styles, but other than that, I had open rein to write about whatever I wanted, which was really wonderful. So it was during 2018, and the news cycle was just really intense. It was after Hurricane Maria struck Puerto Rico. It was also during the Syrian refugee crisis and civil war. And then we here in the United States were also dealing with a lot of political and social unrest, very similar to what we've been dealing with recently. And the news cycle was just rotating through these stories. It's like, you know, it was nonstop. So I felt very compelled to like reflect on that, because I was thinking, you know, here are all these different places in different parts of the world that are experiencing these intense domestic issues that kind of compromise the safety of home, you know, the idea of you know, comfort, which is a connotation of home for many, for me definitely, being in jeopardy, you know, being a place that is either no longer safe, or you're no longer unwelcome, or you're no longer welcome, or you have to leave and you have to go somewhere else in order to survive. So I was really thinking about, you know, what does that even mean? Like, how does one even deal with that? Where do you go from there when you can't even stay in your homeland, in the place where, you know, you're from, where your family's from, where your people have been from? So while I don't have answers necessarily to those questions, I wanted to pose them in a musical way, and just think about this idea of, you know, what happens to like patriotism, you know, when something like that is going on. So I wrote this piece. It's called Homeland, and that's the inspiration. And what I love about what I'm about to share with you now is that the performer in this video is Tara Helen O'Connor, who is my flute mama. She was my teacher when I was in undergrad, and she had such a huge, profound impact on my life, and continues to this day. I feel like under her mentorship is when I really blossomed as an artist, you know, not just someone who could play the flute, but like a musician, you know. She's such an incredible player. She's such a brilliant thinker. She's a beautiful person, everything. I just love her to death. And she made this video performing my piece, which I just still don't have the words to like express how meaningful this is to me. And she did such a beautiful job and put so much of her own artistry and thoughtfulness into it. So this is Tara Helen O'Connor performing my piece, Homeland, for solo flute. So over the summer, Natalie and I, ooh, little bug, my partner in Flutronics, we were approached by the Library of Congress about a little commissioning project they were launching called the Boccaccio Project. And the idea was they wanted to commission a handful of composers to write a short piece that was inspired by their experience in the pandemic. So this was in, I want to say June, when we kind of embarked on this. So we were just a few months into the pandemic. And at the time, I was really, like many of us, just feeling super down. I was feeling very depressed, uncertain. You know, I have 2 children. One is 5, one's 11, and it was really hard to try to figure out how to explain all this to them and to, you know, figure out how to best support them during this time. And so crazy to me that we were all kind of like going through this for the very first time, this really epic experience. So just really not knowing, you know, what is the best thing to do? What's the best way to explain this? And, you know, any of that was just really overwhelming, as I'm sure so many parents were experiencing. And I was really missing my colleagues, and I was really missing my friends. I was really missing the ability to make music with others. That's, you know, one of my favorite things about being a musician is being in a room with other musicians and sharing the music with an audience, and just the exchange that transpires between performer and audience. I was really, really heavily missing that. And when the pandemic started, it was like smack in the middle of all these things I had going on. So it was a real kind of like screech and, you know, slam on the brakes. So it felt very sudden. And yeah, just at the time, you know, I was very much like not motivated, not sure how to be creative, not sure how to, you know, produce art. And I'm the type of person where when I'm not busy and when I'm not productive and producing, I get very down very quickly. So I like to keep myself busy for my own like mental health and sanity. So the Library of Congress approached us, and they wanted one of us to write a piece and the other to perform. So I ended up writing a piece for Natalie, who, aside from being a wonderful flutist and composer herself, she's also an amazing vocalist. So I really wanted to take advantage of her singing in this short little piece. And I just wanted to write about what I wanted most at the time, which was just to be around others, to have physical contact. You know, I'm fortunate in that I've been quarantining with my family, so that's been wonderful. My children, my husband, and my mother. So I haven't been without love, and I haven't been without their touch, but I still really, you know, wanted more. You know, I still wanted to hold my friends and, you know, share time and space with them. And even just being around like perfect strangers, you know, the idea of performing for an audience, I just, you know, I love that and I miss that. So I wrote this piece. It's called Have and Hold. The lyrics are very, very simple. They're just have and hold. And that's really it. That's really what the piece is all about. I'll also say that, you know, because I was writing for Natalie, the style is very much coming from, you know, my Flutronics world, and that I incorporate electronics, voice and flute. So, you know, it's really an homage to me missing her also, she's based in Chicago, and I haven't seen her since March when we were in rehearsals for this big project, Discourse, that we've been working on. And that's really strange. She's someone who, we used to live 5 blocks away from each other when we both lived in Brooklyn. And although she's been living in Chicago for the past several years, we still saw each other pretty often. She would be in New York quite often. I would come to Chicago like a few times a year. So it's been weird that we haven't seen each other. So this is, this piece was really kind of like reflecting on that. Just absence of people that you love. So this is Have and Hold. It's performed by Natalie Joachim in quarantine in her home. So this last piece that I will share with you today is a piece that was commissioned by Ensemble Pi. It's for Pierrot Ensemble, flute, clarinet, violin, cello, percussion, and piano, and it's called The Pattern. So when Edith Corman reached out to me, Edith Corman is the artistic director and pianist of Ensemble Pi. She actually reached out to me before the pandemic, and maybe even like a year before that all started. She reached out to me about the commission, and she told me that she was putting together a concert entitled Reparations Now. And the idea behind it was to kind of like present a case for reparations for the African American community. And she was also exploring the prison industrial complex here, and how the two kind of correlate. And I thought, wow, that's, you know, that's intense. That's a lot. And, okay. I have a lot of thoughts on all of that. And, sure, I'm happy to write a piece that is informed by these things. So I looked more into the ensemble and, discovered that Ensemble Pi has been around for about 2 decades and has been curating programs that are inspired by social justice or social injustice even, and bringing attention to different issues in the form of music. And I thought, you know, that's really wonderful, especially now in 2021. You know, there's been, as I'm sure we're all aware, there's been kind of like an awakening since George Floyd's shooting in our industry, and a lot of institutions, some very quite suddenly, are, I guess, interested in this kind of work. And that's great. That's all well and good. And I hope people and institutions can stay committed to that work, because it's a lot of work and it requires commitment and longevity and time. But what I find really special about Ensemble Pi is that they've actually been doing this work for 2 decades now, which I think is very admirable and worth recognizing. So the piece I wrote, it's called The Pattern. And in researching and exploring different literature about like reparations and also the prison system here in the United States and criminal justice, I actually ended up really kind of zeroing in on way back to like Reconstruction and really, well, even a little bit before that, like the Civil War and then Reconstruction, which is a really, I think, symbolic time. Symbolic in that I think it really kind of encapsulates the Black experience here, which is there is this pattern of it's like a cycle of there seeming like there's going to be progress and change, and then there's some kind of setback. It's the whole 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So my piece, The Pattern, is about that very thing, this very pattern. And as it relates to reparations, to me, I think the first step in reparations, whether or not that's in the form of like finances or land or some other kind of social benefit, I think the first step is a real formal acknowledgement that this is the case, and this is what has been going on like over and over and over again for 400 plus years. So the piece, The Pattern, it starts off in a very like cacophonous, rowdy, violent way, which to me kind of represents something like the Civil War, if that's our starting point. Let's say that's our starting point. And then transitions into a moment where it seems like the dust is settling. It seems like there's an opportunity to rebuild. There's a little bit of hope, but there's also a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of skepticism. Like, can we really trust that this is, we're really progressing, or, this is an opportunity to be free? Not quite sure, right? So then the music moves on to a more kind of like groovy section, which is supposed to be symbolic of, like finding your groove, finding your place in the world, being able to, be free and do your thing. Then that's followed by this very active section where it starts to get a little bit unstable again, and it's like, no, it's not that. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. And finally settles into this kind of like realization moment that, yeah, we're not, and in fact, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And it's sad. It's sad that we can't do better. So that's the piece. It's called The Pattern. I'm actually performing flute in this one, which was a really wonderful thing, because we did this in October of 2020, during COVID, and it was the first opportunity I had to be in a room making music with people since March 2020. So I was really, really grateful for that opportunity, and to do it and also playing my own piece was really special for me. So this is The Pattern with Ensemble Pie. So thank you all for joining me for the past 30 minutes or so and getting to know my music. I hope you've enjoyed what you've seen. Thank you, Composers Now, for inviting me into this series. And yeah, I hope you all are experiencing a beautiful spring day. I think it's finally here. Thank you for joining me outside today. It's been really nice to sit here in the sun and share with you all. So thank you so much. If you want to learn any more about me, you can visit my website at AllisonLoggins.com, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to meet in person and see each other in person in concert sooner than later. So thanks again. Bye.